this feels like the first. Maybe this feels like the second real game of Penn State football season, and like in some ways, like the Bowling Green game became real in game. But this feels like the first one where I'm like, I wouldn't say anxious, but I'm not necessarily completely eager for the way Saturday shakes out in 3:30. I'm interested to see how the travel thing works. I'm interested to see how Penn State does with a much more passing attack. This is the first time they played one really since the Ole Miss game, but like it wasn't necessarily the true team. So I'm interested there. I don't know. I think Penn State can and probably should win. There's a small part of me that wonders, do they win? But I think that as long as they kind of don't shoot themselves in the foot, they at least have a game plan, and that comes thanks to Minnesota and what they did this past weekend.
You get some insights from Minnesota. You hope you can defend the pass, and you hope you don't get into your own head with the travel. I mean, that to me is the risk of the whole travel storyline. I think it's easy to say, yeah, we're going out Thursday. This is why we're doing this, but it's no big deal. They play the game at 3:30. We're going to kick off whether it's 3:30 noon or so, and that's not a message, as we've talked about, messages that is consistent there. That maybe I'm just not listening to it. But I don't feel it's ever a message that comes from the Penn State coach saying it doesn't matter when they kick off. We're going to play, right? Like there's always the process, and there's this, and we've done this, and we've done this. And I don't doubt they're prepared, and I think that's great. But I think the go-home line for all that stuff should be, but it really doesn't matter what time they played. We prepare, we step out there, we execute better, we'll be fine.
I agree with that. Like there's too much. I think one of the biggest gripes I've had, and we talked about this, is like I feel like in bigger games, James Franklin tends to overthink things. And I think that might be like, this kind of is a little bit of an example of that, like overthinking. Because I think it is, if you've ever traveled to the West Coast, it's a lot easier to go from the East Coast to the West Coast than it is West Coast to East Coast. You're just waking up a little bit earlier. And I think that isn't necessarily like a concern to me. It's going to be 3:30 Penn State's body time, and you can't really adjust that quickly. So I don't know. I also just don't want the travel thing to become an excuse either. But and that's more so should they lose. But you've had 2-ish years to prepare for it and figure this out and know this is coming. So be ready.
Miami goes to Cal last week, struggles, wins the game, right? Cal's a very good team. I mean, it'll be interesting, and I'm sure somebody will do at the end of the season. Here's the Big Ten travel, East to West and West to East, and results of teams. But I would just feel more comfortable in the fan portion of my body if the message closed every time with, yeah, we're doing that stuff, but honestly, we just got to go win the game. We got to go execute. It's about that. They kick off at the same time we kick off. We play on the same field. That's how we figured it out.
I think that's, yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that's fair to be yearning for that as a Penn State fan. The thing I did look up before the podcast tonight, I was curious about this. This is the first time Penn State has played in the Pacific time zone in a non-bowl game since 91. And they've only played in the Mountain Time once in that whole period, and that was against BYU. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know. This is just the like things I find interesting podcast this week. I'm sorry. It's about where I'm at with it.
No, that's the cool part about conference expansion, right? You get dog of non-conference games, but you're going to get some cool first-time conference games against these opponents.
No, like Saturday was a neat experience. It was like, oh, this is cool to see an opponent that a lot of these people weren't alive for the last time they played. Type deal. I thought that was what made this past Saturday cool, and I think I'm interested to see how if USC can kind of be the USC we think it can be, how they assimilate into the conference in that fashion. Like, who's going to be their rival that isn't UCLA? Like, who's going to, like, is it going to be Ohio State? It's going to be Penn State? Is it going to be Michigan? Like, I think there's going to be a storyline there, and I think that's fun to watch. And I think the same way with Oregon and even Washington as well. Although Washington and Michigan seem to have already figured out their relationship pretty well.
Well, that's good. Makes it fun.
All right. Anything else football wise?
Nope. What do you got next?